Hello. Warm welcome to all of you joining our EIC Accelerator online training organized by FIT-4-NMP project. My name is Francisco Melo. I'm together with my colleague Giles Brandon. I'm from Lux Innovation. I'm EU R&D and Innovation Support Advisor at Lux Innovation and waiting still to be nominated formally EIC NCP for Luxembourg. So I am your host for this afternoon training. Before going to what is the FIT-4-NMP project and presenting the agenda to you, I would like to explain some very brief housekeeping rules. So we have two main ways of interacting here today. We have the chat box, which I would advise you to use, for example, for networking purposes. And you also have the question box, which I would like to welcome you to use in case you have any questions to the speakers. You can also vote in a question that is similar to yours, so it can be selected for Q&A. We will have our Q&A in the end and not at the end of each section, so I will keep reminding you of this. Before going to the presentations, I would like to welcome my dear colleague from Intelligentsia Consultant, Giles Brandon, which is also the coordinator of the FIT-4-NMP project. So Giles, you want to say something about our agenda and how also about the project, please? Feel free to do so.
Thank you very much, Francisco. So let me share some slides. So, dear guests, hopefully you see a slide showing the agenda for this afternoon's session. So, look, very briefly, what we'd like to do is start off with myself and Francisco giving a bit of an introduction to what FIT-4-NMP project is about, and also about the general features of the EIC Accelerator. Then around about 2:15, Dr. Stefan Zegler, who's the founder and CEO of Zegler Consulting, he'll give a presentation about how to do an EIC application, and he'll give advice about the processes and tips on how to prepare. This will then be followed around about 14:45 with a presentation by Anna Nikodym-Bilska, who's a business development manager with technology partners in Warsaw. And she is a very, very highly experienced evaluator of SME instrument proposals and now EIC Accelerator. And she'll be giving the perspective of what an evaluator is looking for in a good proposal. And then this will be followed around about 3 o'clock, where Dovydas Matulauskas, who's the Chief Financial Officer of Ližens in Lithuania, his company is a fortunate and successful winner of an EIC Accelerator grant, and he'll be giving the perspective of what it requires for his company to produce a winning proposal. And then afterwards, around about 3:15, we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, as Francisco mentioned, for any of our speakers, please put them in the chat, and then we'll basically process them at the end around about 3:15 for the various speakers. And hopefully around about 3:30, we'll be sort of finishing this training session. So I said I would give a little bit of an introduction about FIT-4-NMP. Please allow me to do that now. So I'm going to start off basically with the following question. Are you a talented newcomer interested in support to participate in Horizon Europe? Well, if the answer is yes, look, the FIT-4-NMP support service is here to help. Now, what do I mean by talented newcomer? Look, a talented newcomer, you could be an SME, a multinational enterprise, a public research organization, or a higher education institute. But the thing you have in common is that you're doing some kind of R&D for manufacturing technologies, clean and circular industries, or advanced materials. And importantly, you did not participate in an NMBP project under Horizon 2020. Now, the FIT-4-NMP support service, we're a free service and we're run by a consortium of 10 partners, many of which are national research and innovation agencies, such as Lux Innovation in Luxembourg, MITA in Lithuania, and Technology Center in Prague, in Czechia. And so for our support services, our research and innovation focus is NMP. And basically, what does that mean? So it's these 3 different domains. I won't read all the text, but because these slides will be made available to you. But basically, this is what we mean by manufacturing technologies. Similarly, this is what we mean by clean and circular industries. And advanced materials, as you see from this description below, it's very, very broad. I invite you afterwards to look at the slides and see if the activities of your organization have a fit with those. Now, I'm not going to go into exhaustive detail about the support services that we provide, but look, there's at least 7 of them that I can highlight, and reading them from the list. So look, first of all, if you register with us, we can promote your organization as a potential partner for Horizon Europe proposals. We organize workshops with organizations highly experienced in Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. So for example, in December, we had such a workshop with CEA. In a few months' time, we'll have one at TU Dresden, and there'll be at least another 3 or 4 such workshops, most probably one with TU Delft, probably in the autumn. We give training on grant proposal writing and use the European network portals. That's one reason why we're giving now this EIC Accelerator Training. But number 4, we also provide access to expressions of interest from proposal coordinators looking for partners. Number 5, we also provide access to important European partnerships, such as Made in Europe, Processes for Planet, VAT for EU partnership, and others. Number 6, we can provide support so that you can participate at EU conferences, networking, brokerage events. Within our project, we have the ability to award travel grants to facilitate that. And then number 7, another reason for registering with us is we can help you keep informed of up-and-coming NMP calls via our e-newsletters and the project website. So look, if any of this, or what I've just said, is of interest to you, I strongly encourage you to go to our website, www.fit4nmp.eu, and there you can get in contact with us and we'll send you a registration form to complete. So, Francisco, that's my rapid overview about Fit-4-NMP. I'd like to hand it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Giles, for your brief introduction. Please note that when Giles mentioned the chat box to put your questions, it's not actually the chat box, but the question box. Please use the chat box for some sort of networking or types of interactions, please. So I'll save you to the unpleasant task of presenting myself. I think you already know who I am. I'm Francisco Melo. I'm EU R&D and Innovation Support Advisor at Lux Innovation and still waiting to be appointed EIC NCP. On today's meeting, I will just present you very briefly. I still a couple of slides, but since I will also want to avoid shutting up myself, I will try to spend just a few seconds in the slide to present you just the general features of the EIC program, okay? So the EIC, the European Innovation Council, is on the third pillar of our Horizon Europe Innovative Europe, and is the Europe's flagship innovation program to identify, develop, scale up breakthrough technologies and game-changing innovations. EIC is somehow subdivided into three main funding schemes or sub-programs as you want. The EIC Pathfinder that basically supports from basic research, the transition that focuses very much on demonstrating and maturing technology to develop business ideas, and finally the EIC Accelerator that focuses very much on funding and investing in startups and SMEs to develop and scale up game-changing innovations. So basically from pre-commercial activities to market and scale up. We are today focusing, of course, on the EIC Accelerator. This is just for you to have a visual on how the EIC program and funding instruments can be allocated throughout the TRL value chain, so from basic research to basically market scale up. Very quickly to the EIC Accelerator. What is it about? To support individual SMEs, particularly startups and spin-outs, to develop and scale up game-changing innovations. You can get this support if you want to develop high-risk, high-impact innovations, create new markets, and contribute to societal innovation. If you are into deep tech, if you are on a more mature stage of your innovation, so you have tested it in a controlled environment and you want to develop the later stage and market scale up. And if the help you need requires a significant funding over time, so we are talking here about patient capital. The EIC Accelerator can be subdivided into two main calls. The open call, that is just for any field of technology. So anyone, since you meet the requirements of the program of the EIC Accelerator, you can apply in any field of science, any field of technology. Or you have also the challenge-driven call, which focuses very much on the EU top-down predefined priorities. And for 2022, we are specifically talking about technologies for open strategic autonomy and the technologies for the FIT-4-55. Who can apply to the EIC Accelerator? So single startups and SMEs that are established in member states or associated or as in Europe countries. In more exceptional cases, small mid-caps and natural persons or legal entities that are intending to establish an SME or small mid-cap in a member state or associated country, that are intending to invest in an SME in a member state or associated country, and in this case, with the permission of the first, submit on behalf of this company an application to the EIC Accelerator, or from a non-associated third country and want to relocate your activity in a member state or associated or as a new country. The EIC Accelerator there are more types of funding, we will see that on the next slide, but brings the figure of blended finance. Blended finance is basically a combination between a grant component with an investment component, okay? So you can apply to a maximum of 2.5 million grant that is equal to a maximum 70% of the total eligible costs. And you can combine it with an investment component of up to 15 million euros, okay? As I was saying, there are basically three types of funding in the EIC Accelerator. The blended finance, so it's focusing on innovation activities and market deployment. So TRL 5 to up to 9. Okay, so you have the grant and the investment component, as I said in the previous slide. The grant will cover the TRL, the eligible costs for TRLs for later stage of development, so TRLs 5 to 8. And the investment component will cover mainly activities that are focused on market scale-up, okay? For grant first and grant only, you can see that both of them focus on later stage of development, TRL 5 to 8, and that both of them, we are talking about grant of maximum 2.5 million. The difference between both is that on grant first, you recognize that your innovation still requires significant work, and the latest 6 months before the end of the project, you have to foresee a milestone where your maturity level is assessed, and you can go then to the investment component. You can either go to the investment component of the EIC, or the EIC fund, or you have to show that you have yourself the resources to do yourself the market scale up. Okay. On the other hand, the grant only, the difference is that you just go deliberately for the grant, but you have to show in the beginning that you have the resources to pursue scale up yourself. So activities related to TRL9. Application process very quickly. So for you to submit, you have to have a login, and you need to do it via the EIC artificial intelligence platform. Okay. EIC Accelerator has 3 main steps in proposal-wise: the short proposal, the full proposal, and the face-to-face interview with the juries. So as for the short proposal, what you need to do is to complete your diagnostic based on a series of questions in the AI platform, and to submit a pitch deck of maximum 10 slides and submit a video of maximum 3 minutes. There are no deadlines for step 1 proposals. It is continuously open. The one thing that you have to bear in mind is that after you get the result of step 1, you have to submit the proposal 2 in one of the cutoffs for in the next 12 months. Okay. Evaluation criteria, it's always the same. It's excellent impact and implementation. Step 2 builds upon the evaluation criteria of the step 1. Short proposal is evaluated remotely by 4 experts. For you to go through, you need to have at least 2 goes from 2 evaluators. If more than 2 evaluators give no go, then you're not successful, and you can reboot or you can submit. Resubmission rules, I won't go through them in detail, but they are quite standard to the whole process. Step 2, which is the main workload. For step 2, you need to complete your application in the AI platform, to submit a new pitch deck with no limits of slides, and to submit some additional mandatory documents like the financial annex, the freedom to operate analysis, and the data management plan. The deadlines for submission in 2022 of the full proposal are the 15th of June and the 5th of October. Okay. Again, if you have 12 months after you get step 1 approval to resubmit your step 2 proposal. Evaluation criteria, again, excellence, impact, and implementation. Some of the specifics of each one of them are a bit extended. I won't go again into detail about that. The full proposal is evaluated by 3 remote experts. For you to go through, all 3 evaluators need to give a go for all criteria. That means that you have to actually get 9 goes, because you need to have for each evaluator a go for excellence, a go for impact, and a go for implementation. If you get a no-go in any of these criteria, can be just 1, you are not successful, and you can again rebut or resubmit your proposal. Final step, face-to-face interview with the juries. Of course, all these steps are cumulative. Once you get approval of step 2, you are invited to an interview that can be both on-site or remote. The total duration of the interview is 45 minutes. You have 10 minutes to present, and then you have roughly 35 minutes of Q&A, a panel of 4 to 6 jury members, and the applicant can have up to 3 representatives in the meeting. The final decision of the face-to-face interview is in a consensus. You get a single go or no go. Go means that your proposal is recommended for funding. No go means that your proposal is not recommended for funding. However, the jury can recommend whether your proposal has the potential to be a go and you can resubmit, or if your proposal will be awarded a seal of excellence. For the resubmission rules, again, quite standard. I just included them in the different slide because they are quite. The slide was already quite heavy. So this was very quickly the process. I think that most of the people want really to know about the application process. So now I would like to pass the word on to the next speaker, which is Stefan Segler. He is founder and CEO of Segler Consulting. He will be providing today some tips about the application process from step 1 to step 2, focusing a bit more on step 2, I believe. So Stefan, yes. I'm very glad to welcome you today on this meeting, and I just pass the word on to you while you upload your presentation and you start clarifying people about the application process.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, the presentation is a video. I'm going to paste the video link into the chat box, so just in case you want to go back and forth. And also, in case you want to read some more, I'm also going to post links to my website because there's a lot of articles in case I'm not going into detail. A lot of things. Okay, so you should have all 3 links in the chat. And I'm now going to share the presentation. Apologies, 1 second. Okay, here we go. So you should now hopefully all see the video. You do, right, Francesco? Yeah, okay, probably you do. Okay, so first of all, Francesco already gave quite a good introduction. So obviously, we're focusing on the EIC Accelerator. So as he already said, it's directed at SMEs that are innovative deep tech startup. And the EIC Accelerator is a specific instrument that brings it from, let's say, the prototype stage to full commercialization. It's the last part in the EIC funding programs, from EIC Pathfinder to transition to the accelerator. Then the type of funding that's available, you already heard that more or less, but very briefly, grant and or equity, meaning it's either or. So you can have a pure grant, pure equity, and also blended finance. For the grant, up to 2.5 million. So this is a pure grant. Equity is an exchange for company ownership. So this is a VC type investment. TRL levels are also added a QR code. So this is for one of the articles where I explained the newest TRL levels. But then again, Francesco already explained it. But you can see that the equity goes a little further here, and the grant is up to TRL 8, and equity is TRL 9 and above. Then, so this is a bit of a very pragmatic view of what as a consultant, I'm looking for if a company reaches out to me. Do they have a solid technology? And number 2, do they have a solid commercial plan? Because every once in a while you have, let's say, a very new startup or soon to be startup from a university, and they don't really have any business plan ready. They don't have the expertise, and maybe they also have no idea where the revenues are going to come from. So then the commercial part will be missing. But also there are other types of companies that maybe have a very strong commercial plan, but the innovation itself is quote unquote a bit too simplistic, meaning it is a mix of things that are already existing, or maybe, let's say, the lead product is an app or something like that. This, in my opinion, wouldn't be that suitable for the EIC Accelerator. They're looking for deep tech, cutting edge, unique products and technologies. So a lot of them are very scientific in nature. So they are spin-offs of universities, but not all of them. So it really has to be decided on a case-by-case basis. It's very hard to give a profile of a winner for the EIC Accelerator. If you want to check it out, there's always the list published of winning companies from the EIC. So every time the deadline is done, you can see the list of companies, and it is very, very broad. So I would just say a very technical technology that is cutting edge and also different from the closest competitors. So something that is really, really different. And then, of course, Francesco mentioned the thematic priorities, so the Green Deal and Fit for 55, and then also certain mRNA and things that the EIC has decided are going to have a particular budget. So they are obviously preferred. And then most companies are usually B2B, but this doesn't exclude B2C. There are also B2C companies that are going to be funded. For the commercial plan, there needs to be team is always a thing. Usually startups have more of a technical team. It's rare that a startup has more, let's say, commercial employees or commercial expertise. So usually it's very, very technical, but still there should be a strong business plan, experience, a track record, and there should be a path towards scaling. So the EIC can see that if they invest in that company, they can actually make a difference. So they can actually scale that company. They want to be a springboard in that sense. And also the timing, this is a critical thing. It shouldn't be something that you could have done 10 years ago, or you could wait another 10 years. This should be something that has a good timing, has a good urgency. So this is also why they have their thematic priorities, because they are basically needed now. Okay, so now I jumped too fast. Okay, so for the steps, yeah, as he already said, there are 3 steps. So number 1 is quite simple. So companies don't really need a consultant for the first step, because it's quite easy to do. It's an online form. It's not too much text. You need a 3-minute video, but you can be very creative with the video. It can just be you with a smartphone, or you just recording yourself on Zoom. Then a pitch deck, just 10 slides, and this is about it. You can see the success rate, more or less 60 to 70%. If you want to know where the numbers are coming from, there's a QR code in the bottom. This is from the June 2021 call. They're roughly estimated because you have 3 steps, it's hard to get an exact number of who started and who ended up winning. Then step 2, this is the most difficult part. So more or less 16% success rate from step 1. It's exactly the same format as step 1. The only difference is it's much, much longer. So it's the same online form. You upload some PDF files, but most of the application is an online form. And then there are a lot of annexes. You have a freedom to operate, you have financials, you have a data management plan, you have letters of intent. So, and obviously also a pitch deck. And then for step 3, you have the in-person interview, and the in-person interview is either really in person in Brussels, or it is online. Now it is mostly online. You can see the success rate for the last step is more or less 50%. And overall, you have to pass all 3 steps. So you have to actually pass all 3 steps to get through. So 5% roughly more or less is the rate, meaning that 95% of all companies that start out at step 1 don't end up getting funded. 5% might not look good, but it's better than 2020, because in October 2020, it was 1%. So this is actually pretty good. Yeah, and in this presentation, I'm going to focus on step 2, because I more or less only have half an hour, maybe a tiny bit longer. And step 2 is the most difficult part. And I'm going to go over a few key sections, and I'm just trying to give a few tips. And then hopefully there's going to be a good takeaway for companies that want to apply on their own. Okay, number 1. So when you pass step 1 and now you're in step 2, the most difficult part, so you are going to be faced with this online platform. You can already see there's buttons. I'm going to run the video in the background. I'm going to stop now. If it's too small, you can't see it, I pasted the link. So if you have a TV, or you can have another tab, and you can open it in full if you want to. But you can see the platform is very interactive. You have a lot of drag and drop. Sometimes you add text in one section, and then it's pasted back to you in another section, and then you have to describe it further. So in the value chain part, what you do is you more or less describe the value chain of what you do. You have problem, solution, your customers, partners, and all of that. So what I recommend you in this section to do is to really add all of the entities and all of the partners that are going to be relevant in your project, because you're not going to develop the project in a vacuum. There's going to be suppliers, distributors, regulators, certification agency, customers, and also there's market things, but I'm not going to go into detail for this now. What you should focus on are 2 things. Number 1, the partners that are going to be involved in the project, because the partners you choose here, let's say you have a certifier, you have a let's say manufacturer, supplier, these partners are going to be later on brought back to you, and you have to explain who they are. And then you can basically name drop and describe who are the partners who are supporting you in the project. Maybe you also have support letters and so on. So add all of the partners that are involved. So don't be too brief when it comes to the value chain. The second part that's important is the customers. This is going to be very important. So what I recommend you do, depending on what type of project it is, if it's B2B, B2C, is to really think about what are the customer groups that you are going to basically service or already servicing, or maybe one you're already servicing and two more customer groups are going to open up. For example, so now I opened one, which is the manufacturer. Now I have different options. So this is just one of these icons. Number one is I can say it's the main stakeholder. This is usually like the main customer, so you can only choose one. The important ones are the ones you see below, and I hope you can see this. One says this stakeholder is part of the cause of the problem, and the one below that says this stakeholder is impacted by the consequences of the solution. So these two boxes, they are basically they're going to define the customer, because as soon as you click them, you're going to open up the customer pain points. So now I'm going to click the one below that. And now I open up three boxes. Number one says specify this cause. You can ignore this for now. This is just a bit of a description why you think the customer is also part of the problem. For example, they have a manufacturing process. It's very inefficient. So you say, because they're involved in that, maybe they're also part of the problem. But the important bit is below that. Explain its gains or expectations on the bottom left, and on the bottom right, you have explain its pains or frustrations. So as soon as I click that button, this stakeholder is part of the cause of the problem. I open up pains and gains. And this is important because when you define here the pains and gains for this one customer group, which I have now chosen to be a manufacturer, then this is going to come back to you on the other side of the application in the competitor section. And the way the logic is I have a value chain. I define customer groups. For each customer group, I define basically the pains and the gains, which are the customer pain points and the benefits. And then later on the competitor section, I have to match my competitors against the pains and gains and explain why they cannot meet that. So what I usually do is I think, what are the customer groups that are relevant? And then maybe you have 2 or 3 customer groups where I say, I really can define some unique pains they have that I can address. And then once I've done that, I open up the pains and gains, usually 1 pain, 1 gain per customer group, or maybe if I want to, I can also click both, have 2 pains and 2 gains. And for the pains and gains, you really have to quantify them. So for example, you really have to make sure that the pain is very simply, is usually related to money. So there's a customer pain point, there's a financial pain point. Maybe the manufacturer has a manufacturing process that's very inefficient. So maybe this large company is using 20,000 a month because of the inefficient process. So then this is a very good customer pain point. Maybe they have very high carbon emissions because they, have some process that really is not working too well, or so it's just using some weird combustion engine and we can replace it with electric, whatever it is. And then the gains can be the reverse of that. So how can you basically make the customer earn more money, have fewer losses and all of that? So I recommend the pains and gains to really quantify them very, very well. Now I'm just going to put it in X everywhere just to put in a placeholder. Otherwise, the platform wouldn't allow me to close the window. So pains and gains there. And then below that is the other box. And if I click that, there we go. Now I click it. And now I got 2 more pains, more gains. Oh, I'm going to click in 2 seconds. Now, 2 more pains and gains. So you can see in total, I can have 2 pains, 2 gains per customer, but they're optional. So it's cleaner and easier if you have 1 pain and 1 gain, because you will see later in the competitor section that it's going to be a lot of boxes to fill if you have a lot of pains and gains. Okay. Yeah, and then you have your value chain. Make sure it's logical, and you can add a lot of different things. You can also add pilot customers and all of that. And I'm going to jump forward a little bit. Yeah, there are also things related to the market, but I'm not going to focus on that now. So the next section that I think is very important are the features and use cases. So features and use cases are basically a section where you have the opportunity to really explain the technology in full. There are a lot of sections that ask you about what is your solution, what is your product, what is special about it, what is your unique positioning in the market. But there isn't really a good section just to explain, okay, what exactly is your technology? So just to explain what this section looks like. So you have features and use cases. Use cases are basically like the folder. They're just a title, and each use case contains multiple features. And you have full freedom how you want to set it up. You can have 4 use cases with 3 features each, or you can have 1 use case with 5 features. What I usually like to do is make sure that the entire technical innovation, and if relevant, also the impact, is really in this section. So for example, if you have some technology that is some AI digital software technology, and then maybe you want to start up from scratch, maybe you want to have the first use case, and you say, this is going to be all about data curation and data sourcing. And then you move on to the next step, which is the mathematical models and the software development. And then you move on to the next step. Maybe there's something related to how it is used in the customer environment. And then maybe a next step, maybe something related to, let's say, carbon emission, if this is the target of that. So you can be extremely creative with that section. What I would just give as an advice is, don't just see it as how exactly the customer uses it, because then you lose the whole backend of what you're doing. Because then the evaluator doesn't understand, okay, what exactly is all included in that, because now you only see basically the shiny outside, but you want to make sure that the whole backend and the whole technology is encompassed in the features and use cases. So my rule of thumb is to be at least above 10 features, so that I have a lot of different aspects of the technology looked at. Okay, so this is where you define them, and then scrolling a little further. As I said, the use cases are basically just the title, and all of the text and all of the content is going to be inside the features. And each feature has 7 boxes, and there are the feature description, existing technology knowledge, and then information on the added value and the freedom to operate and the risks, or let's say the bottlenecks associated with that. So all of the content is there. I'm not going to go into too much detail, otherwise I'm going to run out of time. Next one, work packages, super important. Everything you're going to ask for in terms of the financing and everything you want to do in this project is going to be inside the work packages. So the work packages are structured according to what you saw on the earlier slide, which is, I'm just going to let it run, the top 3 work packages where you see M, MA, and D. These are the ground work packages, and the bottom ones, MMA, these are the equity work packages. So this is a case, the example you see now is blended finance. We're asking for both. So for the first one, M is project management, MA is market activities, D is development. What you see now is what you would see if you open it up. These are mandatory, you can't change them. What you can change is you can add more development work packages, which I'm doing now. So now I click the button, edit a new one, and also recommend you to add more development work packages, because otherwise you just have one. So development just means technical developments you have to do, and market activities, once again, you can actually be quite creative. It just, so usually this would be something like pilot studies, or let's say pilot testing. This would be a market activity typical, or maybe it is just really it could also be something like branding and marketing, but this is more suitable for the equity part because it's a little more mature technology wise. But yeah, so the way it is set up is one project has multiple work packages, as you can see, and one work package has multiple tasks. So it's once again, just like the use cases and the features, the work packages to the tasks, it opens up, let's say, like 3 branches. You have multiple tasks per work package. So what is the big change from how it was 2020 is all of the costs you want to have covered by the grant, you actually have to add bottom up, meaning that you can't go in and say, hey, this is the project we want to do, and we would like to have 2 million from the EIC. The way it actually works is you have to give a complete list of all the costs, and then the EIC platform is going to automatically sum up all of these costs. It's going to put out a number and say, this is the maximum grant you're allowed to ask for. So for the grant, there's no lump sum. You have to actually put in all the costs. What you're seeing now is I created a new task, but this is all stuff that if you are on the platform, you do an application, this is what you would see. You also can assign features, but this is a little too much detail for now. And then the next one will be deliverables, which is for tracking. I'm also going to go over that a little quickly. But the last tab is the budget tab. Yeah, the budget tab. So one task can have multiple cost items. So for example, work package 1, task 1.1 can have 5 different cost items. It can have employee costs, which is basically salaries. Then you have a subcontracting cost, for example, which can be an IP law firm. It can be anything. It can be clinical testing. And then also goods and materials or travel costs. So you have a lot of different versions of costs you can put in. And once again, if you want to have a budget that goes up to, let's say, 2.5 million, you have to add a lot of different costs. And of course, salaries should be a cost part of every single task because someone has to execute that task. One little peculiarity is that when it goes to equipment cost, and this is something that some evaluators might not notice, but then obviously in the due diligence, if you're lucky enough to get funded, let me just go back, then this will come up. If you buy, for example, an MRI machine for your project, and your project is going to take 2 years, then the EIC is going, or let's say the EU is going to say that we do not want to pay for the whole machine. We're only going to pay for the depreciation cost of that machine during the project time, because you're going to keep the machine afterwards, but we're only going to fund that particular project. So then you would have to look up the depreciation of that machine in 2 years, and this is the equipment cost you put in. This is a little, this is a little curious thing that you should be aware of, because maybe you go into the due diligence and then they come back to you and say, hey, this machine, is this the depreciation cost or is this the full price? Because you're not going to pay the full price. But you can Google that. If you just put in depreciation and something like Horizon Europe grant, then you should find something about that. Okay, pains and gains. When I talked about the value chain, I said that it's important to define your customers there, because as soon as you define the pains and gains, they're going to come back to you in the competitor section. And this is now the competitor section. If you look on the screen, it says pain 1. And below pain 1, you see an X. This is the X I put in as a placeholder there. If I had written the whole text of this manufacturer is losing 20,000 a month because of the inefficient manufacturing process, then this is exactly what you would see there. So this is not fully competitor section yet, because now we're talking about your solution. In purple, you can see your solution. Now you have to reiterate how you yourself are addressing the pains and gains. This can be partially redundant because you already kind of did that in the pains and gains, but there's going to be a lot of sections in the proposal where you think, oh, this is a little bit redundant. I kind of have to write the same thing again. If you feel like you have to write the same thing again, try to write it from a different angle. In this particular case, let's say you've already described how you are addressing the pain point, or you already have described how you make sure that there's a gain. Then what you can do here, for example, is just give a case study. So let's say you say, yes, we are addressing the pain point, or yes, we are meeting this gain. And as a case study, you can just describe a pilot study you did where you actually did a test of a company doing that. So there's always a way of not repeating yourself. And you don't always have to fill all the boxes. Most boxes have a 1,000-character limit. But you don't always have to fill them. If you feel there's nothing more to say, you don't need to force yourself to fill the boxes. It's usually better to be precise and quantify rather than fill every box. So now it becomes a competitor section, because now I'm just typing competitor 1, add existing solution. Now we have a new tab. Now I put competitor 2, add existing solution, new tab. And so this is the first half of the competitor section, because now we're looking at the competing technology. So what does their product or other products, how do they compare here? And in the next section, we're going to talk about what are the competing businesses. And here a little note before we go to the next one. Imagine in the value chain, you decided to have 6 customer groups, and each customer group has 2 pains to gain. So suddenly you have 12 pains and gains now. And 12 pains and gains. And now in addition to that, you have 5 competitors. For example, you have 5 tabs here, 5 times 12, you're already at 60. Then you would have to fill 60 boxes explaining how the competitors match against the pains and gains. This is why I said in the value chain, it makes sense to keep it clean and keep it simple and just focus on the USPs. It makes sense to have 2 to 3 customer groups, and each customer group maybe has 1 pain and 1 gain. Or if you want 2 pains and gains, but they're going to multiply, because you see here, competitor 1 has its own tab. And then if you scroll down, you have to address all of the pains and gains again. And now imagine you have 5 pains and 5 gains and 6 competitors. It's going to be a lot. So I would really keep it simple and keep it focused on your USPs, so you don't have to write too much. Even if you write it the way I say it, it's already a lot. So, and also for the evaluator, they're going to appreciate if you focus on the important bits. One note that goes for this section, but also for the one I just discussed. It's going to appear now as soon as I put it in. So this is the same tab thing where just competitor 1, competitor 2, but now we talk about the company. one note to this: sometimes, or a lot of the times, there are a lot of competitors. So for example, let's say you have a new innovation in the logistics industry. Obviously, there are very large logistics company already there, and there's not just one. So let's say you already have 10 competitors in the conventional way, which are large companies, and then maybe you're aware of, let's say, another 10 startups. Suddenly you have 20 companies that you could basically compare yourself to, and then you would have to create 20 tabs, which is an insane amount of text. So what you could do instead, oh, but by the way, time-wise, Francesco, if you can give me a note in the chat, just in case I'm over time, then I would wrap it up.
Yeah, 5 minutes, Stefan, because you also started 5 minutes later.
Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, then my recommendation would be to summarize, to group them together. In the same way you group the customer according to the pain point, you group the competitor according to what they provide. If you group them, then it could make sense to have, let's say, 4 to 5 different competitor groups where you say, okay, these competitors are all kind of in the same bucket, and these competitors are all kind of in the same bucket. If you do that, then make sure you don't lose the resolution by not naming them. So for example, group 1 contains Siemens, Philips, and whatever. You should name the company specifically, that if the evaluator is reading your competitor section, they don't feel like you just glossed over it. So let's say competitor group 1, in the very first box, I would name all of them just to make sure it's somewhere. And if there are individual differences inside the group, you can also name these differences just to make sure that you don't lose the resolution. Okay, competitor section. Yeah, one more note. This is something that's very easy to forget. Don't neglect the pricing comparison. There's a different section in the application for the pricing, but in this particular section, make sure that even if it's difficult to compare the pricing for every single competitor group. So this is something evaluators are definitely going to look for. Even if it's really difficult and it's a different project, different value proposition, just have some type of pricing comparison. Okay, so the risks. This is obviously for high-risk projects. So on risk, I don't need to say too much, but don't go in with too few risks. So really think about their commercial, financial, technological risks. Think about things that are currently going on, whatever. Semiconductor shortages is still going on. So for the risks, I would recommend to at least have 8 risks, but you can have 15 risks. So risks are always a good thing. The only thing I would say to that is have very strong mitigation measures so that the evaluators understand that you have really thought about these risks and you have good mitigation measures just in case. And the last one, financials. So as I said, in the work packages, everything is calculated bottom up. Let's ignore that for no, that's okay. So for this part, you see these 6 boxes. On the left, it says expected exploitation revenues. On the right, expected exploitation costs. This is your profit and loss. You put that in yourself. And then if we scroll down, we have the costs, which are calculated automatically on the platform. Everything you put into the work packages pops back up here. On the left side, you have all the costs for the grant. On the right side, you have all the costs for the equity. And you can see on the left side, the only thing you can actually change is the amount of grant requested by the EIC, but the maximum amount is predetermined. So this is why I said you can't ask for a lump sum. Everything needs to be in the tasks of the work packages as a budget. On the right side, this, by the way, again, this is blended finance. So this is for asking both grant and equity. On the right side is doing the same thing for the equity work packages. But there's a special thing where they say, do you need more investment? And there you can actually add a lump sum. For the grant, everything is calculated bottom up. For the equity, part is calculated bottom up, but you can also add a lump sum on top. And now I'm almost done. Okay. And then one peculiar thing about the EIC fund is that the EIC fund doesn't want to be the sole investor. They want to be an instrument that helps crowd in other investors. So if you ask for, let's say, 5 million from the EIC fund, what they like to see is that you at least match that with other private investments. And what you ask for should also be realistic. If you're a company that has raised 800,000 from a university grant, and this was used for a spin-off, and you've never raised private financing, and now you want to ask for 15 million from the EIC, and you say that you will raise the co-investment of another 15 million from private sources, then it might be very unrealistic. But and in a different case, if you've already raised, let's say, 1 to 2 million in private investments, and then you want to have, let's say, 5 million from the EIC plus 5 million co-investors, plus you can also name the potential co-investors, then it's much more realistic. So it makes more sense for the evaluators. And I'm going to skip that because I'm actually out of time. All right. Yeah, I hope this wasn't too fast. It should be recorded, so you can look it up, and you also should have the video. So I hope you like it.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you very much for your presentation. I ask our guest participants to please keep active on the question box, because unfortunately we are now over 100 people in the webinar. So that should be the way that we deal with Q&A. Unfortunately, no one will be allowed to take the stage because of this. And our speakers will continuously be replying to you. In the meanwhile, and with no further ado, I would like to introduce Nico Dimbilsa, which is our speaker. She's from Technology Partners and also a experienced evaluator for the EIC Accelerator, that will be giving us some tips on what evaluators usually pay more attention to. So Anna, thank you for joining us, and the stage is yours. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So it's good. It's really good to join you. I'm Anna Nikodymbilska, and of course, we'll show you some more slides. Okay. All right. So now you know the rules of the call, and you know how the application platform looks like. You know parts and sections which you have to fill in, and I will try to give you some hints how to present your proposal to help actually evaluators to evaluate your proposal as excellent or at least very good. Okay, so I will try to give you some hints. So maybe something more about me at the beginning. I've been evaluating proposals for Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe since 2015. Most of them, of course, for SME Instrument and EIC Accelerator, but not only, also for RIA and CESAR joint undertaking. In the security area, mainly drones and similar topics. So you can find some more information about me on LinkedIn if you wish. Who is an evaluator, and about the evaluation process from the evaluator perspective. So this is first a few slides which I would like to present you. So who is an evaluator? Maybe it's not everyone, but there are some scientists, but also, but most of evaluators are entrepreneurs, business people who are really experienced in business, also corporation managers, financial experts also, and innovation managers as me, or investors. In jury, you have most of jury members are investors or businessmen, right? So there are a lot of people, not maybe not exactly scientists, right, but also involved in the market and people who knows the market very well or excellent. Okay, but they are people, they work somewhere. It's not their job, first job, okay? So you have to think about it from the different perspective. So this job is additional to evaluate proposals. It's not the first job, okay, for them. So as you can see on this picture, the job for evaluator might look like that. I have only one kid, so it was similar, but not exactly the same. But mainly such people works in the night, because we get some proposals and you need to evaluate 8 or even 12 proposals in 1 week. So, and we also have to work, right? So so most of our work is done in the night. So think about it also, that people might be a little tired, right? So what is the perspective for evaluator? So you have to think about it as these people are really busy and tired, right? So they are busy because they work somewhere else, and tired because they have to evaluate your proposal in the night. Okay, so this is the worst case. Okay, but you have to think about it also this way, because it may happen. Okay, it's not usual, but it may happen. So how to help them to evaluate your proposal in the way you think you wish. Okay, so you have to present it in such a way to really help them. So it must be clear, must be consistent, and must be convincing, okay, for them. So what can you do? You can tell a story, because it's easier, you know, to write the story, not some facts, not just only facts. Okay, so you can use a story to tell them about your idea, about not idea, but your proposal, your solution. Okay. Second thing is convincing. So you have to convince evaluator that they have to invest in you, in your solution, because they are such kind of advisors, let's say, to the commission, to which proposals, to which undertaking commission have to invest. Okay, so think about it from the other perspective. And third thing is that there is no second position. What does it mean? We can consider it twofold. First of all, there is no second position, because you have information go or no go. So you win or you not win. And from the other hand, you have to think about it that if you applying to EIC Accelerator, you have to be prepared for this win, for go. Okay, it means that you need also prepare your team, you and your company and your team, to prepare for really hard work for at least 24 months or more, if you choose not only grant. Okay, so think about it in that way, that there is no second position. So you need to present your solution in the way to convince evaluators that you are really ready now. At this point, you are ready, and your technology is ready. Okay. What about the innovation? I'm telling you some tips because of my experience. So what I saw in application, I might discuss with you. Okay, what I see, how I see it, and give you some advices. Okay, so first of all, innovation is not invention. Okay, so you have to really define your innovation. What is the innovation? Not only invention, patents, etc. You need to think about converting the invention into really commercially viable product. Okay, so this is first rule about the innovation. And some examples. As you can see, at the left side you have inventions, and on the right side is innovation. So it's in some usage. Okay, so you have to think about the market. what kind of innovation we have? We have user-driven innovation, of course, which is I think the best perspective for innovation. So you have to talk with your clients, with your end users. You can use many tools such as design thinking to prepare innovation, to define innovation. And engage your users systematically in the process. Okay, so in that way you will have really a best product or proposal or solution on the market, the best for them, and in that way you can charm your market actually and gain some share on this market. What about some more about breakthrough nature of innovation? Well, the Commission is looking for disruptive innovation. Okay, so not invention, innovation, and disruptive innovation. What does it mean? It means that that it might disrupt. It should disrupt a market. Disruptive means disrupt the market. So you have to think about it in that way, that your solution will create a new market or change the whole market and consumer's life. Okay. For example, game changing. It might be digital photography as an example, and breakthrough innovation, it might be streaming platforms. So you see the difference, right? So this is something for the market, but game changing is like changing the market, right? And breakthrough is really something new and creates the market totally. Okay, creates the whole market. So evaluators are asked actually to define if the solution is game changing or breakthrough innovation. It doesn't matter which kind of it, but it must be disruptive innovation. It means game changing or breakthrough. Okay. Some more tips about description, let's say. Okay, so we have let's say scale, right? How to evaluate particular sections, and for example, as you know, in English language, how to comment something. So first of all, you need to say something good or neutral, right? So you can say the concept sounds, and then you point some missing points or weaknesses. So it's similar way for the evaluators with the comments. So first of all, we have first sentence, which is positive or neutral, such like the concept sounds, and then we put however and point all weaknesses, okay, or shortcomings. And if an evaluator is experienced, they know which kind of weakness is shortcoming or even weakness, right? Or is it minor shortcoming or something bigger? Okay, and in that way we grade our assessment, right? So what you really need to do is avoid howevers, okay? However, and these points. So you just need positive sentences. It means that your description should be really complex. Describe everything is asked, and must be really clearly presented. Okay, some more hints on next slides. So what you have? what you need to present in this first step cover. It's similar actually with the second step, but it must be more detailed, right? So the risk assessment, it was stated in previous presentation. I will tell you something more about risk, how to deal with it. Product and technology, you need to describe market and competitors, and also commercialization strategy, business plan and financial forecast management, and also a project management. Of course, ownership and capital structure, and also investment issues. So how to do it? I know it sounds it might sound strange that all these things are different, but you have to be consistent and present it in a similar way. So how to do it? So I would like to recommend you to do really simple thing, which is using elevator pitch at the beginning. Also, it's also for you to exactly define what is your solution. Use elevator pitch with the description of what is your solution exactly, okay? And when you do it, you can use it, the rule of elevator pitch, to be such detailed in actually each description, because as you have seen on the platform in this application generator, you have seen that there's not so many space, right? Not so many signs. So you don't have 5 or 6 pages or 10 pages, right, to write about your solution. You need, let's say, 500 signs or 1,000 or 2,000 signs in particular sections. So you need to really think about the most important things in the sentence and build it really clearly. Remember about, middle in the night, right? After 8 or 10 hours of work before, okay?
Anna, sorry to interrupt. Can I please ask you to wrap it up? We are over time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what I can also recommend you with description, try to avoid general descriptions. You have to put which, for example, this sentence: DroneTech is an integral system for industrial security, blah 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 blah. I don't know from the sentence what is exactly the system. So you need to be more detailed. The system of drone swarm or something, give some more information about it. And if you focus on functionality or benefits for users, it means for the evaluator that prototype might not exist. And what evaluator do in this way? Search on internet. So you also need to have information about your solution or your company on your website in English, of course. And we are checking also LinkedIn profiles. So please be aware about this. And if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, try to establish them for the whole team, okay? So clear description of objectives and the technology. And please focus on with the SMART method for description of objectives is the most important is measurable. You need to define really in numbers your KPIs or targets, okay? Don't use percentage because it's not really welcomed. Okay, risk management. Okay, so it was stated about the risk management that it's also part of the application. For me, it's very important because this is the place which might be assessed in many different ways. It depends on what evaluator think about your mitigation action. So please be really clear and define your risk really in details. And mitigation action, which you would like to put here, it must be something beyond the proposal, beyond the statements which are already in the proposal. So you have to propose something beyond, some actions, okay? Beyond the project management, something more. So you need to still remember that it's an innovative project undertaking, but it's not a research project, but it's still the project. So project management is also very important when you get funds, because it's this kind of undertaking. So you need to be familiar with some major rules. Technology readiness level. So I think I can skip it because it was in the rules about the call. Present your team. What is important? Very important is actually gender balance and competences of the team, which are presented in few sentences and on presentation. When you're presenting your team, so please also be clear there and think about the gender balance. This is very important. You need to do, of course, market analysis and competitor analysis to prepare your descriptions. And also business readiness level. You also have to think about it from that perspective. Very good tool for preparing the whole solution, the whole project actually is Canvas business model, and also add some points which are not in Canvas business model, like project management and description of innovation. So after you prepare your first elevator pitch, you can use it as a basement for the Canvas business model and start with customer segment and value proposition, and then it would be easier to prepare the whole undertaking. Okay, European or global potential. So these two are positive. Regional, it's not okay. Okay, it's not enough. So you have to think about your solution if it have European or even global potential. If it's not, start another call in regional funds. Okay. You also have to remember about benefits from various perspectives, because it's a European Commission call. So you need to answer some challenges, and present some benefits for the society, for the economy, environment. And if you have something with the area of climate change, it is also really worth to point it. Okay, don't forget about graphics, good graphics, especially on presentation and your video. During your video, think about also backgrounds. You can also use this space for your presentation, for your video. And don't forget about the presentation, which you prepare for second step, because it won't be changed before the interview with the jury. So when you prepare second presentation for the second step, if you get go to the interview, it won't be changed. So it must be really well prepared. Okay, so some more information about entities, not entities, agencies who can help you, organizations who can help you. It's NCPs and EEN networks. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and sorry to rush to you, but really we are a bit over time. Of course, we wanted to keep it as much as possible because this is very highly appreciated, valuable information for our EIC applicants. In any case, you can take a look more quietly to the slides and to the recording of the meeting afterwards. In the meanwhile, and I would like to introduce you our last speaker, Dovydas Matuliauskas, if I am not wrong with the name, is from Legends, Chief Financial Officer. Legends was awarded EIC Accelerator proposal recently. So, Dovydas, the floor is yours. Tell us how to win a proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. So today I think we've heard a lot of interesting presentations. Due to time restraints, I'll try to keep my short. And generally, I just go over, the whole process, maybe the first-person experience of how it went. No technical details. I think technical details have been already answered, or you can just, type them in, and I'll try to answer that. So maybe briefly about Legends and our company. So we started back in 2019. So Legends is a deep technology company developing a DICOM image viewer for automated analysis and reporting of echocardiography studies. Yeah, we won this EIC Accelerator project funding. I think we had a positive response back in November last year. But yet still we're only going to sign the grant agreement and the investment agreement in the nearest future. So maybe about us in general. So how we got to the EIC Accelerator. So since the inception of our company, we've been quite active with various grant schemes, fundings, various competitions of startups, etc., etc. And I believe that this was one of the greatest experiences that actually gave us a lot of knowledge about many things and how to write project proposals and how to pitch your idea, etc., etc. The reality is that all of our founders, everyone in our company, we all have medical background, and we're not professional specialists in project writing, in finances, and business development and stuff. But nevertheless, we had to learn all these things organically because otherwise we wouldn't be here. And so we did. So as you can see, we started with various competitions like European Innovation of Technology Jumpstarter project back in 2019, where we won the second place, EIT and the Stars Awards 2020, where we won the first place. We also made some successful projects here locally in Lithuania, basically called Innostarta. So those are small funding schemes, but the experiences of writing the project proposal were invaluable. And so yeah, after building this knowledge, this experience year after year, we decided that currently we're really ready to actually go on and start a very huge project. So moving on, I'll just detail my presentation step by step, because as you know, there are 3 steps in the EIC Accelerator application process. And so how it went for our first step. So actually, we didn't use any external help for that, because the first step is usually, you're just supplying the evaluators with a pitch deck. And so, yeah, we had a lot of experience in that. We tried to be, as detailed as possible. We are also try to imagine that we're actually raising just, another round with investors. And actually, that's what you should also have in mind. This is no different than raising from someone else, for example, a venture capital fund. And yeah, you must be very critical to your work, basically to understand where your pitfalls are, and make sure that anyone that is reading your project proposal simply from the pitch deck has as least questions about your project as possible, because if it raises a lot of questions, it might not be a very good project. And yeah, one of the most important things to memorize is what is your return on investment, and how you're going to increase your revenues, because they're very strict about that. They're looking at it, and I suggest showing everyone that 3 to 5 times increasing your revenues is a very good estimate, and those projects will be financed quicker, I think. So moving on about the second step, project application. So for the second step, we actually use some external help. It's recommended. It's not mandatory to have some consultants who you agree with to write a proposal for you. If you have a person who is really experienced inside your team, who can dedicate at least 75% of his whole working time just for a project proposal, and he or she has at least 3 to 6 months for that. So yeah, you can do that. But if your team members are already fully working on other projects, other stuff, so yeah, I think you should also consider hiring consultants for that. Yeah, the other suggestions is just be critical to your work as in the first step. I mean, the less questions you raise for those who are going to read your application, the better it is for you. Well, we didn't rush for the spring cutoff in June. I think we tried, to postpone our project proposal until October because we felt that with more time we could supply a better, we can submit a better application, and it turned out to be true. And yeah, consultants are very good basically to answer a lot of technical questions. So the things you're asking right now in the comments, they could be also really well answered by consultants, because they really are familiar with the platform itself, because the platform for me was I think the scariest part, because it was so complicated. But the other stuff is generally like, writing a very good business plan and how you're going to achieve things. So nothing very different from, any other project proposal. And so let's move on to the third step, which in my opinion was one of the most stressful, simply because, it was all about human contact. So in some cases, you can always hide under, a pile of paper, where the project is written, basically. But when you come, onto face-to-face contact, and you really have to understand your whole project. So I think it is best that the person, every person who is going to pitch in front of the commission, should be at least, somehow involved in the project writing. Simply because the project is around, I don't know, maybe 65 or more pages, and you won't be able to read them all, I think, the night before the pitch. So yeah, make sure you're really aware of what's written in there. And yeah, questions that you should anticipate. So basically how you're going to conduct business. So yeah, I mean, we got around 40% of questions about our business. How are we selling, to whom we're selling, etc., etc. The technology itself received the most questions. I mean, 50% of all questions were related to technology somehow. So we actually had to tell the commission, step by step, tell about the whole stack of our software that we're building. So that was quite interesting. You don't get these questions a lot from regular investors, but you might expect some such questions from the European Commission, and therefore a person, your CTO, a technology officer, should be over there to actually answer all of those questions. And since we're dealing, with the clinical device, with the medical device, we received around 10% of questions in that. So yeah, you should also expect a handful of questions about your technology, about the field that you're working in. So they have a good understanding, that you have a good understanding about the field you're working in. Yeah, our pitch was held, not in real time. It was held online. We didn't go to Brussels. We did it over Teams. So my just short, a very easy thing to recommend is just have your sheet somewhere out, print it, or on an external monitor, because it might come in handy. And yeah, what you can do as well is play with speakers, be as natural as possible. So for example, we used 2 presenters instead of 1. So we just split the whole presentation in half, and had the one speaker who is more related to clinical side, to medical side, to tell about the problem, the benefits, and then we had a second speaker tell more about how we're going to conduct business from that. Yeah, if you're able, for example, if you're manufacturing a device, you can always show it on camera, bring it on site to show around as a prototype. I think these things are always helpful, because as mentioned, it's all about human contact. And if they can remember you, if you made a good impression, if you understand what has been written actually in your project application, it means that you really want it, you really were prepared, and therefore you're going to get the highest points. The other thing I think it's all about rehearsal. So yeah, what we did, we rehearsed, I think, for about 2 weeks, I believe. So every weekend, every evening, we had a quick meeting and rehearsed together with my colleague for the pitch, so that we don't encounter any problems during the pitch itself. And also there was invaluable help from our local NCP, Edita. She actually sacrificed her evenings. I'm talking about 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening, basically to spend time with us, to rehearse with us, and give comments, etc., etc. And we also had a lot of impressions, comments from our consultants, because we also pitched to them. But at the end of the day, when we had the meeting with the commission, I can honestly say we came over prepared. So it is better to come over prepared than under prepared, in my opinion. So I also recommend you doing that. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any of them. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dovydas. I think that these tips were really practical and straightforward. Our speakers have been very active in replying to comments on the chat. We have a couple of them to still reply. And perhaps, Dovydas, instead of typing down the answers, I would just put them live, since we still have a few minutes of Q&A. Of course, our audience are welcome to still put some questions to Dovydas and to any other of the speakers. So in terms of the question and answer, what is the time necessary to prepare a solid step to proposal? Can you estimate a person, month, or working hours invested in proposal preparation? Dovydas and others, I suggest that perhaps Stefan could have a say on that. Do you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I can do that. So in our experience, yeah, I worked at it for I think half time, and the other was my other projects, and we had another person who's been doing it 75% of his time, but we also had a consultant company. So if it wasn't for them, I think 2 people working full time would take you somewhere from 3 months to really prepare a solid proposal. We could have done it after the step 1 for the June cohort, but we would only have at least 1 month, and with getting every commercial offers from subcontractors, from other vendors, it's just plainly impossible, simply because it's summertime, everyone's planning their vacation, and no one is responding to your email. So yeah, don't rush, and just take your time.
Yeah, I would say more or less, I usually go with 2 months if this is all you do. So obviously, as myself, as a consultant, I have the whole company on the side that can respond to my email. I have the CTO, I have the CEO. So it really depends. But if you wanna do it quick, I wouldn't do it quicker than 2 months, because you need a lot of time. If you have more time, it's better. And I also see a lot of delays. So even 3 months can seem like not enough time if you realize that sometimes you're suddenly at a conference and then a week is gone and all of that. So yeah.
Thank you. Please, some more questions. How is the business evaluated for equity investment? I don't know, Stefan, you may be the right person to come in.
Oof, I probably can't say too much to that. I'm actually now with one client in the due diligence process. It takes a long time. So I would say that the European Investment Bank is taking over the how do you say, the equity part. And also, if there is a co-investor who is the lead investor, then they might let them handle that. I can't say more because I'm not that in the weeds when it comes to that.
I know the answer. So basically, they will look into investors who are also co-investing with them. So my suggestion is to have an investor as early as possible and agree on the valuation with them. So agree on as high as you can, and then basically European Commission will not will not bother themselves reevaluating your company.
Thank you, Dovydas. As we still wait some new questions, I would like to perhaps go to Anna, a question that you already replied, but looked interesting in terms of the process. Some of our participants were asking about the process not being more complex than before. Do you want to share with the others now some words on that?
Yes, I can. I can tell you about the process because I was involved since 2015, so it was actually evolving. So it wasn't a new process for us, because each year it was something added to the process. So more questions, different sections. In the application, there was new names for sections. So each year it was evolving. So EIC Accelerator pilot, actually, so it was between Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. So it was actually evolved already version. So and now it is a standard, and it didn't change since 2020. So it is. It might be complex, but it was actually it was in different places in SME instrument, and this information were also needed, but not everyone remember about it, that they should write it. So this application, this template is with this information. Then you have to be specified on this, on this, on this. So it's not actually new. So it's evolved version.
Thank you, Anna. We have a new question for Dovydas about your experience with the due diligence process. If you want to make some comment about that.
Yes, so it's only going to happen. Basically, how it goes, so they're only offering a person who is going to evaluate your project, and you have an opportunity, a right to actually agree with that person, or to reject that person, because somehow that person might be related to another company, which is your competitor or whatever. In our case, I think that guy also was in our pitch, so yeah, I think he's not involved with any competing activity, and so we just agreed with that. But yeah, the whole process will only take place, and I don't know, if you have my email, just write it after a month or two. I'll try to explain it in more detail.
Yeah, maybe I can say a few things. So basically, after you get the go, then you have this external, how do you say, just like additional external technical due diligence. So they're going to go back over the whole proposal, going to look at everything. And sometimes, even if you have a small number, let's say this customer is losing 20,000 a month, they might see a number and then they ask you for a reference. So I had this case where they asked for a lot of reference for numbers that were in the application, where you can't really easily add references. And then you're kind of in the due diligence process where you actually can change a lot of things. So you can change work packages, you can change cost items. You're even asked to change, maybe add more risks. They just want you to re-edit the application so that everything is fine. So this can take quite a lot of time. And just one small note, because someone asked a question about the pitch deck being 10 pages. The 10-page pitch deck is for step 1, and step 2, the pitch deck is unlimited. So it's just for step 1, the pitch deck is 10 pages, and then the step 2 is whatever you want.
Yes, even if on step 2 you can have more slides, but you still have to pitch in 10 minutes. At least it's the message that we have. Dovydas, someone is not happy with the pitch definition that you gave. Do you want to provide any further details on that, or even Anna? I think.
I'm trying to type the answer. Okay, so for me, what I understand it with the word pitch is it comes from this actually elevator pitch method. What means the really short presentation for investors. So presentation for investors. This is the pitch.
Yeah, pitch is a very,
I understand it.
millennial-derived word, fancy word for just presenting your business idea. So
yeah. So basically, 10-minute presentation, half an hour, 35 minutes Q&A, and all the pitch deck itself. So it's basically an interview. You can see it as an interview.
Great. I think everyone's happy now. I think that we are now okay. We got another question. If I am correct, there is negotiation step before signing the grant agreement. How was that? Did they expect you to change anything, for example, financially?
I'm not sure if they expect, but yeah, that's kind of usual thing, and yeah, we will be doing that as well. So, no project is 100% true from the point you submitted. So there's always changes to that, and that is normal. And yeah, you will do some changes financially. I can assure you that.
Especially when it comes to the one thing I said about the equipment part because of the depreciation costs. And also that's a bit of a thing because they have two platforms. They have the old website and the new website. And as soon as you get the go, you have like this due diligence negotiation part in the new website. And once you get closer to signing the grant agreement, everything is transferred back into the old website because this is where you have the signature for the grant agreement. And there can be some glitches. So you have to re-update the budget and what's the other one, the deliverables and the milestones and so on. So, and also obviously changes to the financials and maybe the salary costs. Maybe you put in whatever 2,000 a month and then you realize, oh, wait a second, we actually have engineers, they have much more. We didn't calculate the overhead and the person months don't make sense. And then you have to adjust that. So there's a lot of additions coming after.
I will take this as final question since we are now over time. It's more for Giles. How do we get help of FIT-4-NMP? What part will we be able to help? Giles, you'll be answering all these questions every now and then.
Okay. Well, look, the first thing I would say is please register with FIT-4-NMP. So if you haven't done it, go to the FIT-4-NMP website, www.fit-4-nmp.eu. There you'll find out how to contact us. We will basically send you a sort of registration form to complete. And then basically we have your profile in our register and you'll be kept informed of future training events. Also, if we're hearing about coordinators looking for partners and you match the profile they're looking for, we can get in contact with you. So it's basically down to you to please register with us and then we can do the necessary.
Okay, perfect, Charles. So we are 7 minutes over time. I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone for having taking part in this EIC Accelerator online training. I think that we had some different perspectives on how to build a proposal and how it can be successful. Thank you so much to our speakers for having shared their views and their expertise with us. All the participants will hear from us soon, either sharing the materials and also the recording of this meeting. So once again, thank you very much for being there, and we will be in touch.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much to all the guest speakers, and thank you very much, Francisco and Lux Innovation, for hosting this event. I mean, it's been very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
the best to those doing applications. Okay. Bye-bye.